That intro video just gets me pumped up. But welcome into the Extra Point Show presented to you by Fantasy Points, where we go through Underdog Fantasy player prop picks every Sunday morning. My name is Nick Skrip here with my guy Major. Major, week 6. We are in October, mid-October now. Season's flying by and a lot of ups and downs just overall. There's a ton of guys out this week. It feels like half the league is not playing. I know a lot of people for fantasy purposes are starting wild guys in their starting lineups this week just to deal with it. But what's your thoughts here 6 weeks in, man?
Yeah, man, it's been an interesting season so far. Some people who, was at the top last year are not there, and we're trying to figure it out. But kudos to us. I gotta give us a little love. We don't try to give you guys the top player every week. We trying to dig a little deeper, give you that good analysis and go from there. And also I just read something about Cam Akers possibly being traded. So keep your eyes and ears open about that.
I've also read up that Christian McCaffrey potentially might be on the move as well. They're listening to offers. I don't know. Just before the show kicks off, man. Any dart throws on a possible landing spot? Or are you just saying he's staying?
He's maybe he'll go. I'll say let's go to the Rams and trade Cam Akers for let's do that one. That's the easiest one. Let's do it.
Yeah, I think it'd be wild if somehow the Bills had some sort of capital that made sense, and he's on Buffalo. Even though Singletary's been okay this season, but I feel like if they just want to do a run a monopoly for the season, they might try to make that move. But who knows? Tons of rumors every single week. But if you guys are tuning in,
That'd be
Extra
awesome.
Point Show here is all Underdog Fantasy player prop picks. So if you're not familiar with Underdog Fantasy, you can type it into your web browser, Underdog Fantasy, or go to the App Store and type in Underdog Fantasy. If you sign up today, instant deposit matchup up to $100 if you use the promo code Fantasy Points, Fantasy PTS. So you put down $20, you can use 40, and so on. So how it works every week, and I made a joke. Major and I are somewhere between 50 and 100% on our hits this year. I think we're doing all right. But how it works is I go through 4, Major goes through 4 picks for the day. You guys, if you like 2 of them from me, 2 of them from him, you guys are in business and a few of your own. But if you go on the app, you'll see a player and a ton of player props. So, for instance, you look at Lamar Jackson, they'll have tons of props for him. You can select one of them, pair it with another guy, and then you can put down some money and be in some business there. So, very easy to utilize. And again, use that promo code Fantasy PTS if you are not on there. Make Sundays more fun. So, Major, I'm gonna turn to you, man. Give us your first player prop that you are pretty optimistic about this Sunday.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one, man. I'm gonna go with my guy Benjamin, higher than 92 and a half rushing yards and receiving yards. We like that double up, But this is
Sure.
finally this is the for all the Benjamin truthers, we finally have the opportunity we've been waiting for. We can all just say it with our collective chest, like it's time, let's go. But yeah, this is the opportunity we've all been waiting for him. He's facing a last place defense, so it's no better time than now. Seattle is giving up 770 rushing yards per game. And that same defense gave up 122 rushing yards to Taysom Hill and 194 total yards to Alvin Kamara in the same game. So if Eno's ever had a better chance to break out, this is the breakout we've been waiting for. And in limited time so far in his career, he has beat this mark. I mean, he's never beat this mark, but it's shown flashes of big play in talent. So I'm all in on Benjamin. And also feels like the Arizona front office is kind of in on him too. It kind of made them okay with letting Kenyon Drake go in free agency and stuff like that. So I think we have some high hopes for Benjamin this week. So I'm gonna go higher than 92 and a half rushing and receiving yards.
Yeah, we say this every week. Anytime you can combine 2 stats, we're all about it because it just raises that floor for these guys. And You mentioned some recent numbers, and yeah, again, you're seeing like Jamal Williams, 108 yards. Patterson back in week 3
Yeah.
had 141 yards, and we don't really regard him as this big rushing running back, but for fantasy purposes, it's a good matchup. 6th most points per game for running backs right now. I think anybody who was going to be the starter in this game, you're going to be all for him. Had a good week, last week, scoring that rushing touchdown, had some catches as well. So it's not like he's only running the ball. So I'm fully with you with Eno in the lineup this week. And there's a lot of new running backs, man. Eno, we got Deon Jackson should lead the way for the Colts. Opposite side of Eno in this game, Kenneth Walker is going to get his first full-time
Right.
start. Feels like the running back room is just shaking up this week, doesn't it?
Yeah, and actually this week I forgot to mention I'm going all running back. I'm the running back guy. We got to go running backs this week. Who you got
Yes,
for your
sir.
second one? For your first one?
Yeah, so the first one I like this week, I'm going to go Kirk Cousins over 262.5 passing yards. So the Dolphins give up the third most points per game to quarterbacks on the year, and the 5th most passing yards per game. So I try to look at the fantasy lens just because it shows that it's a good matchup for quarterbacks, and they're giving up a ton through the air as is. And Kirk Cousins is season number 6 in passing attempts, number 9 in passing yards. So he's been above this mark 3 out of 5 of the games he's played this year. In one of those games that he didn't hit it, he was at 260 passing yards. So he was 3 yards shy of hitting this for 4 out of 5 games. So I know with the Dolphins, they'll have Skylar Thompson, third string Miami quarterback in for this game. So maybe people are saying, the script might not be there for him to have to pass the ball a ton, but Miami's a pretty good team in general. For one, they're having a good season. I'm sure, Skylar Thompson's not going to be a world beater, but I feel like the Vikings are really, really trying to push to lead that NFC North division, and they're going to focus on just getting the results versus not playing to what their strengths have been this season. And one of their strengths has actually been Kirk Cousins throwing the ball for some decent yardage to his guy Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen and company. So I'm going to go with again Cousins over 262.5 passing yards.
Yeah, I'm with you, man, but I'm holding my breath a little bit here because every time I choose Cousins for anything, he always lets me down. So, you know what? I'm gonna go opposite. I'm gonna help you out because I think I'm the bad luck with him or something. I'm gonna go opposite just to help you out. I'm saying he's not gonna do it, but
Hey, I feel
yeah,
you, man.
and
I
that's
feel you, man.
yeah. He's always like boning me or whatever people say
You
out
said,
here.
you know what? You said
Uh,
something similar to David Njoku earlier this year. I was like all in on some sort of prop for him, and you're like David Njoku is kind of screwed me over a handful of times, so I'm against it. And you were right, man. So sometimes that gut feeling goes a long way. So it's I feel you there.
It's a lot of luckiness. There's a lot of superstition. There's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff going into betting and sports and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for my second one, man, I'm gonna go with um Austin Eckler higher than 59 and a half rushing yards. Yeah, so Eckler balled out last week, rushing for 173 yards on 16 carries. After a slow start this season, I was one of the people who were kind of saying that it may be a tough year for him, but it seemed like he's turned things around a little bit. Um, he's showing he still got some gas in the tank, and he's going up against a top 15 Russian defense, giving up 122 yards a game. But Eckler has beat this mark at least the last 2 weeks and is averaging 63 rushing yards per game for the season. So he's beating this mark on average, and like I said, the last 2 weeks he's been on fire. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Eck over 59 and a half.
Yeah, I think the big need for him to hit this mark in this game is for the Chargers to not have a super tight game, because we know that his best ability is through the air. The first 2 weeks in tighter matchups, he had under 40 yards rushing, but a ton of work through the air. Weeks 2 and 3, 9 and 8 receptions. But like you said, the last 2 games, Houston and Cleveland, he's been above that mark, and I think he had a career, if I'm not mistaken, rushing day last week with 173
Yeah.
rushing yards. I mean, that's not typical of Austin Eckler, but he's hot right now on the ground, which is something we don't see often. So I feel like if this isn't like a one-score game, he'll be able to get more work on the ground. If the game's tight or they're trailing for some reason at Denver, then it might hurt his chances. So I think that the game script's going to be important here, but hot the last 2 weeks, so I don't hate that. My second one here, I'm going to go Christian Kirk over 58.5 receiving yards. So last week, Christian Kirk had his worst game of the year, pretty much. He had back-to-back 9-target games, week 3 and 4, to drop to 3 last week. Marvin Jones Jr., I put too many S's in there, but you get what I'm saying. Had 11, and Zay Jones had 8 targets in this one. So Kirk's had 2 pretty poor games in a row, but if we flash back to week 2, he played the Colts in that one. So that's who he's playing this week. It's their second matchup of the season. He went 6 catches for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he actually tore up the Colts the last time they played each other, and that was in week 2. So pretty recent. The Colts aren't the friendliest of teams in the fantasy world to play against, but I feel like 2 down weeks for Kirk. This screams like a get-right game, knowing that he should have some confidence from week 2 that, hey, I already tore these guys up once. I need to get back on track. I can do it again. So 4 out of 5 of his games this season, he's been above this 58.5 receiving mark. He's a receiver with receiving yard upside. I like him to get right this week against the Colts. I feel like it's a pretty low mark for a guy we've seen hitting that mark pretty recent.
Yeah, and he should also have, a little more targets going his way. Look like Marvin Jones is out this game as well, so he'll be we'll have Trevor Lawrence throwing to Christian Kirk a little bit more. So I'm with you on that. Let me see who I have next. I have Kenneth Walker. You spoke about him a little bit earlier. And I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer on this one. I'm gonna go a little bit lower. I'm gonna go lower. So I'm gonna go Kenny Walker lower than 63.5 rushing yards. With Rashard Penny getting injured last week? Yeah. Or the
Yep,
week
yep.
before. Uh yeah, Walker filled in and did well at 88 rushing yards on 8 carries, averaging 11 yards a carry. So it's showing like big playability. We all know that Coach Carroll likes to run the ball as well. But Penny was only averaging about 12, between 11 and 12 carries per game. So I think Kenny Walker probably is going to do a little bit more than that. I like him in that 15 range. If he gets in there 15 and 20 range, he might have a big game. But like I said, on average, the starters only running the ball 11 to 12 times. Arizona is a top 5 rush defense, only giving up 97 rushing yards per game. So it's unlikely. Unlike Benjamin, I don't think this is going to be his breakout week. I think he might have to wait another week to have that breakout. But yeah, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go lower on this one. I'm trying to give you guys some highs and some lows. Let's go.
Yeah, I do appreciate you balancing them out. I didn't this week, so I think next week what I'm going to do is just go all lowers, just because I went all highers for this week. But Kenneth Walker, you're right about the matchup though. It's a tough matchup to running backs. Seattle's actually been pretty successful with Geno Smith through the air right now, so I don't think that going into a tough game against the Cardinals, they're going to say, hey, we need to make sure that Kenneth Walker carries the ball 22 times in this one. I think he's going to get some work. I think if he has a good day, it's going to be a goal line touchdown. I think that's going to be more in his favor versus coming out versus the Cardinals, a tough matchup, and running for 130 yards or something like that. So I don't really hate this pick, and I agree with you on next week being that breakout, just because it's the Chargers, who we talked about, or maybe we didn't mention before, but the Chargers being a bit more of a friendly defense for running backs this season so far. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm with
Real
you
quick
there.
too, I think we're both like optimists. We're like cup half full type of people. You know what I mean? So it's always harder for me to find like the unders. I'm always trying to go over. I know you like to go over. We're just like nice guys. We want to see people do well, right?
Yeah. I have a tough time sometimes just saying a guy's going to have a bad day, but in reality, it's important to do it because I feel like the unders hit more often because a lot of people are overly optimistic that people are going to have really good days, and especially with Kenneth Walker, people are so excited. It's his first start. I think
Exactly.
our big wish is like Kenneth Walker, first game, 120 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns to be the best, running back in the NFL for that week. But I do hear you on you did hit on the unders. I remember week 1 on the rookies, man. I think you had 2
Yeah,
rookies unders. So I feel like you got a good grasp on the young guys, man.
yeah. I love the rookies, but yeah, who you got for your third one?
So I'm going to go with a guy that I feel like is in the shadow of another wide receiver right now, but I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson over 5 receptions. So I think the focus right now has been on George Pickens because he's been stepping up in the offense. He's looked pretty good. He's a deep threat wide receiver. He looks great. I still say to this day that one of the dumbest things the Bears did was skip out on George Pickens because they could have used an actual, another breathing wide receiver, and he's like a good breathing wide receiver. So I would have loved that. But I'm looking at Deontay Johnson over 5 receptions because he's coming off of a 13 target week. He just wasn't super productive, and that might be on him, might be on Kenny Pickett, who's a young rookie quarterback. I'm not sure how high you are on him. It was a tougher matchup last week as is, but when we look at Deontay Johnson, he's number 7 in targets right now with 50. He's a player that earns them. He's earned them the last, 3 years now. One of his 5 games, he's been under 10 targets. So quietly, it's a guy getting 10 targets every single week. So if he's getting that mark, we're only asking him to catch a little over 50% of them in this game. They're playing Tampa Bay too, who continues to get healthier. He's getting a ton of targets per game, and I feel like the game script is going to really push against Tampa Bay, who looks healthy right now, to have to pass the ball. I don't think they're going to rely on Najee Harris, who has looked awful. Might be on him, might be on the O-line and mix it too. But Kenny Pickett threw the ball 52 times last week, so I'm not going to say, he's going to throw the ball for 52 times again. But I think this shows that Tomlin doesn't have Kenny Pickett on like a short leash, like I just mentioned my Bears, like Justin Fields only throwing the ball like 20 times. So I'm going to go Deontay Johnson over 5 receptions.
Yeah, and I like that one. He tends to in the past he tends to get the ball thrown to him a little bit more. He's a little heavier on the heavier side on the targets. And this year he's averaging just about 5 between 5 and 6 catches this season. So I'm with you on that. Yeah, I mean I'm not going to say it's a no-brainer, but it feels good. I think that's a good one.
All right, man. So you got your last pick of the day. What are we looking at?
This one is kind of like, I don't know. I went back and forth on this one. Like I said, I try to give you some highs, give you some lows. I'm gonna go Saquon Barkley lower than 0.5 rushing and receiving TDs. I know we like that double up. I know we like to be higher. We have like a better percentage of winning because you got 2 different categories you can win in. But as I dig a little bit deeper in on this prop, man, I zoomed in and seen that Barkley scores a rushing touchdown every other week, and he
Yeah.
scored one last week. So this week, I'm feeling like he's not going to score. Um, and Barkley, it's I don't know, it's up and down with him, man. He does look good. I think he's still recovering. I don't know if he's 100% yet. Um, yeah, but I don't know, man. Like Baltimore is averaging like 1 rushing TD per game, giving up 1 TD per game. So I don't know, man. He's had a good game on the ground so far, but he's held out the end zone. He hasn't caught a receiving touchdown all season as well. But I think this may kind of be similar to his performance in week 4 where he had 146 rushing yards and 0
Mhm.
touchdowns because Baltimore does give up some good yardage on the ground to running backs, but they've been doing a pretty good job of bending, not breaking. So yeah, like I said, they're only giving up 1 TD a game, kind of averaging out, but I don't know. I just kind of like that pattern of Saquon every other week scoring a touchdown. So I'm gonna go with the trend.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. Every other week, touchdown, not a touchdown, and sometimes trends are broken. Like I just talked about Mike Williams on a show last week, how he had a good fantasy week, a bad one, and he kept alternating, but finally
Right.
hit 2 in a row. But with Saquon, I think one of the things that kind of holds me back as well from him is that his pass catching ceiling is not as high as it was in week 1, where we saw him catch 6 passes. And it's weird because New York has been like desperate for somebody to catch the ball. They've had all these guys banged up or just not performing. Darius Slayton, had a really good game. They were depending on Richie James like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the last 2 games, he's combined for 5 receptions. So if he's only catching 2 to 3 passes a game, that kind of lowers that ceiling of him having that receiving touchdown. So now you're banking on him having a touchdown on the ground. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that note about what he did against Chicago. 146 rushing yards. I think he can have that sort of day, but yeah, I'm not sure about that touchdown just due to that ceiling right there. So I don't mind that pick at all. Saquon's having a killer season, though. You got to give your tip your hat to him. And you know who else is having a killer season? The Giants in general. Did you expect them at all to be 4-1 at this point?
I don't know what's going on. Like them, the Cowboys is just like upside down. Everything is upside down right now. So why not? Let's go.
Might as well. I mean, the Eagles. We can say maybe we didn't expect them to be undefeated, but we expected them to be very good this year, and they look great.
Right.
Yeah, just giving that note for our guy Ben in the background here. But my guy, my last pick of the day. If I can actually look at it, I'm going to go Zach Ertz over 49.5. I wrote down fantasy points, but I meant yards, receiving yards. So we're not going to say over 50 fantasy points. But Zach Ertz, I love him in this matchup. It's the number 1 matchup for tight ends as far as points per game goes for the fantasy world. So that just, again, tells me for player props, like, hey, this is a great matchup to have a tight end player prop bet on. So week 4, Hockenson went for 179 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. Pitts went 5 for 87. Ross Dwelly scored a touchdown in week 2. So when we're looking at Zach Ertz in this matchup today, it's a really, really good matchup against 4 tight ends against Seattle. So for him to have a 50-yard day, to me, makes a ton of sense. He's number 1 in routes run for the tight end position. He's number 4 in targets and receptions, number 2 in red zone targets. So he's being utilized heavily, 3 games of 10-plus targets. So 50 receiving yards at the end of the day doesn't seem like a lot. The one asterisk, though, is that he's had 3 games in a row under that mark. He's only been above it once. But I feel like this matchup today versus Seattle is just one I really, really like any tight end for. And Zach Ertz is having a killer season in terms of his usage for the Cardinals. So I'm going to go 50 yards or more.
Yeah, and he's averaging just right about that for the year. He's at 46 yards. So again, playing against tight end friendly defense, I'm with you 100% on that one.
Yeah, so with the app, I do want to mention too, because I didn't mention it earlier. I think I mentioned it 2 weeks ago, but they have a cool new feature now. So let's say you took 4 total picks from today's show. Could have been 2 from Major, all of Major's, some of mine, regardless. They actually have this feature now that is an insurance feature. So for instance, if I took 4 picks, 1, 2, 3, 4 picks, I put $5 down. It's $50. It's a $50 payout. So that's a decent payout on Underdog. But if you were to click that insurance option, all you have to do out of the 4 is hit 3. So you are able to miss one of them. And that payout would be $30. So it's still worth it to me. $5 for $30 at the end of the day, and you get to miss one of them. I do also want to mention on the show here today, while I have you guys, the Fantasy Points prop tool. It measures available props versus our projections, and it'll let you know what a best bet is. So you can hear our picks here today. Go over and use that Fantasy Points prop tool. Just another incentive to be a subscriber to Fantasy Points. It's free right now, actually, through week 7. So if you want to check it out first, go check it out this weekend. And again, whenever you have a tool that will show you, the available props versus what the projections are from analysts that look at this nonstop, I think it's a great incentive to go check that out. So please do while it's free through week 7. Major, any closing thoughts here on the show as we wrap up heading into week 6?
No, man, just kind of want to add to what you were saying. Like, we are helping you guys get money right now, man. So much free stuff like the Fantasy Points tool. That's money right there. You come to Underdog and you give our name, you say Fantasy PTS, You give $100, they're gonna give you $100. You can play with house money. Like, it's easy, man. I don't understand why people would not be doing this. There's too much free stuff going on right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we got Halloween this month, so you need the extra money for the candy, the costumes, and everything. So it's always good to have some extra cash in your pocket. Thank you guys for tuning in, though, to the Fantasy Points Extra Points show. We are on the show every single morning on Sundays. Major and I talking player prop bets, here to win you guys some cash. So check out Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code FantasyPTS, and let's win some cash together.